or half an hour, 40 minutes to an hour. So you're not always gonna be at the right angle.
Yeah.
All right, we're joined live this hour by Aston Wallace. He is a comedian, a writer. Very, very excited to have him. He's very, he's a very funny guy. He interviewed me one time, so like, so it's kind of like, we gotta interview those who interview us. So, and for other reasons, that's not just why. But I'm really excited to have you here. Tell us, how did you get your start in doing comedy?
I actually, when I first moved to LA, a guy, my friend, met in the bathroom at a club, was a comic, and he ended up like hanging out with us, and he was like, "You guys all should come check out the Comedy Store," which I think was like maybe the first comedy show I'd ever been to. And I went, and I just kept going for years. Me and that guy became good friends. I started helping him write jokes. I started like meeting other comics and kind of doing the same. And then eventually it was like, I could do that. Like, yeah. Like I'm thinking in jokes and I'm writing jokes. Just get on the stage and do it. So that was kind of it. And like I have a pretty professional career on the side, so it always seemed like a kind of crazy thing to try to do, like get into comedy when you're doing something that is not hanging out in bars every night and trying to come up with jokes and stuff. So it took me a while.
So you're in the bathroom, you're doing whatever you went to go to the bathroom to do, and then all of a sudden this guy strikes up a conversation, and all of a sudden you're now in comedy. So can you expand upon that a little bit?
I wasn't in the bathroom, but first of all, wanted to be clear, I wasn't the one in the bathroom making friends. That was my friend, and they went on some East Coast vibe, and he comes out and he's like, "Hey, this is our friend. He's hanging out with us now." And the dude was funny, and like the comedy show we went to was at the Comedy Store. It's actually still one of my favorite shows. I haven't been there for so long, I almost forgot. But it's a show, Murdoch show at the Comedy Store, and at the time the host was Leslie Jones, back when she was kind of a new comic, so she's up there being great. A lot of really good comics. So I had a chance to see like a lot of really good comics, and yeah, that was that. So like you met him, that guy. We're still like kind of whatever, but he was a real what do you call it? He was kind of an insecure comic, so we'd always like need feedback and need a bunch of different stuff, and so we'd always call me in to do that. So like after he finished every show, I'd be like backstage at the Comedy Store because he would call me back and meeting comics back there and talking comedy, and I really fell in love with it. I love the Comedy Store. It's like if you've been to the Comedy Store, it's one of my favorite places to be. So, and it's just like comics hanging out. It's a really good vibe. So hanging out there, like I literally started going like every week, and I started helping getting comics booked up there. And I remember I like helped one of the bookers, what do you call it, cast a movie and a bunch of different stuff. So I like really started to get involved in there. And so after a while, once you go like 2 years and you now have a notebook full of jokes, and you're not doing them, you got to get to that point where you like test yourself and go like, you got to go up there and do this.
Yeah.
And it's basically like, I said to myself, if I go up and they laugh at one joke, then I'm gonna keep going. And they laughed at most of them, so I kept going.
Yeah. So I really want to get into this, the fact that Leslie Jones is hosting, the fact that you were booking comedy shows, the fact that you were, getting involved in kind of casting movies. I mean, that's all really incredible, interesting stuff. But I am stuck on the fact that your friend met somebody in the bathroom, and then like, so can you what did they talk about?
I don't even know. Somehow they were in the bathroom. One of them, my best guess is one of them had to have on a hat of, like, because the other guy, we were from Philly, the other guy was from Baltimore, and when he came out, that was like kind of it. Like, this is Kwame, he's from Baltimore, we from Philly, and like my friends that were visiting, we're all from Philly, but we might have been involved in some things that happened in Baltimore, so we all had like Baltimore connections. So it was. It was like this kind of like, oh no, he's one of us. And it was like the first 2 months that I moved to LA too. So I didn't really have any friends outside of school. And like I went to law school. So it was like, it's a lot of like really white kids and all that for the most part too. So it was like cool. Like it was a cool black friend to have. That's not like, like some guy that's coming from Yale and like all pretentious and stuff. It was like a dude kind of like we were like. So I don't even know what they talked about in the bathroom. I still thought it was weird. We like after the night was over, we're like, hey man, that guy was cool, but hey man, don't be making friends in the bathroom. Like it's like it's weird. And like we had a bottle at the club and he invited him back to like drink. We were like, no man, bring girls back to drink with us but we ended up with him. We're still like cool to this day, And he introduced me to comedy, so I'm glad he made that friend in the bathroom because otherwise now I just like might just hate myself doing law all the time.
Yeah. No. Your story about hats or shirts or something indicating I'm in one town, but I'm from another town that's near the town you're from. Now your story makes complete sense to me. We can move on. So
Right.
tell us about Leslie Jones.
The Leslie Jones was actually great because Leslie used to host the show, and my friend and Leslie like didn't quite get along, and she would always just like talk shit because she's a comic and like that's what she did. And I remember one day my brother was visiting, and the two of them got in like a huge fight from the stage. Like she cursed him out from the stage. And like Leslie's a beast of a comic. Like she was like more vicious then, and she like went after my homie, and he tried to give the Comedy Store an ultimatum and said, listen, it's her and me. You get rid of her as the host, or I'm not going to do this show anymore. She's not going to be anybody. So cut her, stick with me. I'm your guy. And they made the right decision, and I don't think he's really performed at the Comedy Store since. And that had to be like, that was before Leslie Jones was famous. Like it was like probably like 15 years ago. So yeah, they made the right choice. But he was real upset. He's like, no one's ever gonna make her famous. Look at her. Da-da-da-da. I'm like, well.
Well.
Yeah. But yeah, I used to see her like every week. She was really good.
Yeah.
No.
So, as a comic, do people tell you like say something funny like on the spot, and how do you respond to that?
Yeah, no, it's like usually like now I just say no, which I think is funny. I just like deadpan the shit out of it. Like say something funny, I'm like no. And they're like okay. And like something like I remember I went home for a show, and I was trying to get high before the show, and it was at some like VFW Firehouse or something. It was this big like coming home show. So like it was in like where I grew up, and all these like parents and like people and stuff from where I grew up came to the show. So I'm back blazing behind some barn or something, trying to get ready for the show. My friend and her parents come, they spot me. Like, oh, like, hey, like, what's up? And I was like, all right, I guess I'll go talk to them. And I'm talking to the dad, and the dad's like, oh, I got one for you. I got a joke for you. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, I really don't really take suggestions. He's like, no, you're going to want to use this. You're going to want to use this. And he's like, so my wife's always late. And I was like, nigga, I'm not even married. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you think this joke is for me? Like, you just have a joke that you think is funny. And I said that to him because I was pissed that he fucked up my smoking. But after a while, I did decide to like come up with little one-liners because I don't do like one-liner comedy. But I decided to come up with one-liners just so I could be like, all right, here's a joke. You know what I mean? And then they're like, oh, that's good. All right, yeah, it's funny. I'll come see you. But it all depends.
Yeah.
Like that's literally my favorite question.
Yeah. So was his wife joke funny or?
No, it definitely wasn't. I don't even remember it. I don't remember it at all. It was not funny. Like, nah. Yeah, I hope he's not listening, but he won't be listening. His wife might be listening, because she's like always on the internet. But yeah, no, it wasn't funny at all. Did not make me wanna. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I think it was about her being late or cooking. Some like one of those like bullshit like my wife sucks type jokes, which not me.
Yeah. You ever seen Mad Dog and Glory. There's a scene where they do that.
Why does that sound so familiar? I don't think I've seen it because I can't remember it, but it sounds super familiar. Like I have seen it.
It's like with Robert De Niro and Uma Thurman, and De Niro's like trying to give Bill Murray, I think it's Bill Murray, yeah, Bill Murray like advice on how to be a better comic, and Bill Murray's like this mafioso slash comic.
It's like it is such a thing though. Like my dad does it to me all the time too. My dad always be like, "I got one for you. I got one for you." And I think once or twice I've been like, "That's actually not a bad premise. Like I'm not gonna tell it like that, but you're onto something." But yeah, that's like super common. That and like, do you know this person? Do you know that? Oh, do you know this guy? I'm like, I don't care if you like that guy. I like me. Like, what about my comedy? Watch my jokes. What the fuck do you like? My dad called me up about two people. My dad's called me up to tell me about. One was there's a dude, Preacher Lawson, who's like he's a friend of mine too, but he got second place on America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom like calls me up, you know, she's back in Philly, she's watching America's Got Talent. She's like, "Oh, Aston, you gotta watch this guy, Preacher Lawson. He's on America's Got Talent. He's really good, and Preacher's great." And so I was like, "Oh yeah, like I know Preacher, he's really good." And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." She's like, "Cool, cool, cool." And my dad gets on the phone, and my dad's like, "You know who's good? You know who I like? Kevin Hart." I was like, "Oh, the biggest comedian in the world, Dad? Is that who you're like? You like Kevin Hart? Cool, cool, cool." And he also did it with like Trevor Noah, like he discovered him, like not like Trevor Noah while he was on the Daily Show, like you know current Trevor Noah. He was just like, "You know who's good? You know what I think is going to be good? Trevor Noah." I was like, "Dad, you didn't discover him. Like he's literally on a nationally broadcast TV show. This is your fucking discovery." But you know, he tries. I appreciate the interest more than anything though. So I try not to shoot my dad down because I'm like, "You're paying attention, so cool, cool, cool."
Do they compare you to other law professionals as well?
Oh, what's that?
Do they compare you to other law professionals?
No, I just get like, "Oh, you're a comic and a lawyer. Oh, that's like a weird combination," like all the time. And then I get the like, "Oh, I bet you get so much material from doing law for comedy." And I'm like, I literally never ever mention on stage that I'm a lawyer. Like if you're the host and you bring me up to, "Oh, this guy's also a lawyer," like I'll pull you aside after the show and be like, "Yo, don't ever do that again." Because one, comedy is kind of like based on like relating to your audience, and then people already had this like one conception of lawyers. So like if you go up there, one, if I tell a joke about like being broke, which is like, "You don't know my situation, I'm broke." Like just like I don't always have a good job. Like so like he's a lawyer, and I might tell a joke about like being broke, and people are like, "This guy's bullshit. He doesn't live that." And then also any joke with law requires so much setup. So, like, you know, like I do depositions a lot, and if I do it, like funny shit happens in depositions all the time. But I know if I want to tell a joke about what's happening in a deposition, I gotta set up what a deposition even is, and then like still hope the joke is funny enough to pay off. So like I kind of avoid it completely. But everyone thinks like the comedy would help. I mean, the law would help with the comedy, but it's actually like completely vice versa because the comedy like helps like shit with the law because I'm terrible at my job, but people let me get away with everything because I'm like super nice and come in and like bust a joke and like the room's happy and they're like, "Oh, never mind that was late." Like, so definitely, it smooths some shit over.
The movie Intolerable Cruelty, did you find it one funny or two accurate in terms of a legal from a legal perspective? You have a unique perspective to answer this question.
That's the one with Billy Bob Thornton and that hot lady.
Yes. No, that's someone with George Clooney.
George Clooney and that hot lady. Michael Douglas is John. Kirk Douglas is Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas. Yeah, yeah. Love that movie. Like I remember loving that movie. Couldn't tell you what that shit's about. I just remember I loved it. And the reason why I thought about that too is because what's that show on Amazon with Billy Bob Thornton? There's a show on Amazon with Billy Bob Thornton, and he plays a lawyer, and it's like the most legally accurate show that I've seen. It's like hella funny. Their procedure is on point. Like they're all that's on point. Whereas like most shows, I'm like, the fuck are they talking about? Like that wouldn't happen. Like all that like in the middle of a trial, like we've got a surprise witness, and someone like walks in the back of the room. I'm like, no, like what do you nah. So I do appreciate a show with like great like that legal accuracy.
Is it Goliath?
Goliath, yeah. Pretty good. Set in LA, scumbag lawyer, working with scumbags, which is like my whole vibe.
Yeah. Intolerable Cruelty is a movie where Jeffrey Rush gets stabbed with an Emmy in the beginning.
I'm about to I don't even remember that. I think I watched the movie like twice. Like I remember like where I was when I watched it. I remember laughing. I think I remember telling people like, yo, this movie's underrated. Really liked it. Gone from the brain.
So let's talk about movies. You said you were involved in helping cast movies. Tell us that story.
All right, yeah. So when I first moved out here, my first job was for a small like talent agency, and so I worked with them for a while. I get along pretty well with people. I have a pretty solid eye for talent. Like the number one thing I did for the agency I worked for was Scout, and so every now and then, like someone would be like, "You want to come help out with this?" Like, yeah, for sure. Sit there and go through people because like I would do all the auditions for our casting agency and our talent agency and stuff like that. And I really just kind of fell all the way from all of that. But that's like the first 2-3 years I was here. I only did 1 or 2 castings, maybe 2 castings. But otherwise, I would do like every week. I would be like selecting who would come in to read for our talent agency and trying to help make decisions with that and everything. So that was like something I actually like enjoy doing. But another thing that goes like, if you think you have talent and then you watch other people that think they have talent and you're like, I can do this. I can do this. Especially if you're like reading with, like I would always like read with actors. Mm-hmm. And then usually like, and I don't act at all. Like I've been in like 5 sketches before. But like, yeah, I mean, people would like be watching it and be like, oh, you should be doing this. And like the agency I worked at always would be like, they always thought no matter what I said, no matter what I did, they all thought I was trying to work at the agency so I could get into acting. And I'm like, I literally have no desire. But the comedy thing I did.
Yeah. So what is it like to ghostwrite? I mean, do you ever like get upset? Like, like you give somebody really good material and they're getting the laugh and like, you're like kind of standing there like.
Not really. Like one thing I feel about it is, one, it's just nice that you first it's like, oh, yo, my material is good enough to be up there and it's doing well, right? So you're like, that's dope. And then like it's kind of like almost like when someone steals your joke, which that I feel totally different about. Like that I might fight you over. But at the same time, you're like, all right, dope, my material's enough to be stolen, right? So if I give you something and you use it and it crushes, super happy. And like the thing about joke writing is you're kind of like supposed to constantly be coming up with new stuff, like it's supposed to be kind of like a thing that's in you. So for me to go like, oh, here's something funny for you to add to this, or here's how you punch this up, or whatever, and that does well, then I'm like super happy it does well. It'd be worse if someone like took your stuff or used your stuff and it didn't do well. as opposed to like, yeah, like they got that and they use it. Like the guy I used to write for, the last time I seen him go up was a few years ago, but I'm like, told jokes and I was like, that's mine, like longevity, my jokes are lasting, so it's cool.
Yeah. You think do you think well, I don't know. Like hmm. Oh, you're in trouble. Never mind. I was going to ask you about if certain people were joke thieves, but that might actually.
So what? How am I trouble?
I was going to ask you who, like, if certain famous people were joke thieves or not, or what you thought, but then.
Bro, I think most, like not most of them, but a lot of them are, and a lot of like upcoming comics are. I remember the time that I've had one joke stolen that I'm positive of. There's some stuff that I hear premises and stuff, and like other people would be like, that sounds like yours, but I like give it the benefit of the doubt, like, it's parallel thinking, or, it's just kind of the same premise, or we could easily arose at that. But I went to one show and the lineup was like all like upcoming comics. They're all like, this guy just did Kimmel, and this guy was on Conan twice, and this guy, all that. And I saw like 3 of those comics, and like one of them stole mine like verbatim and like in a shitty way, because it was like a pretty trans positive joke that I was telling, and he told the joke to like steal my experience and make me look like the asshole in it, and then act like he hadn't. Like 2 days before he met me for the first time, told me that he saw me a week before and that he liked my set. And then I went to go see this show that he like didn't know I was going to be at, and I like watched him tell my joke. And he was like, "Oh, I don't know where I would have heard that." I'm like, "You literally just told me that you saw my set and you liked it. Like you just stole my joke." But I saw 2 other comics like rip 2 of my other friends' jokes off too. Like, and I was like, "This is like how you guys are getting on." And another friend of mine is like, oh, well, yeah, that might get me in trouble. But a dear friend of mine right now, she kind of just did a show, and oh, you'll like this too. I hope she's not watching. She's not watching. And either way, I love her to death. She's great. But what was the joke? The joke is that she told on national TV was, mind this is a young white Jewish woman. And she's like, I was basically raised by, my like caretaker, insert Spanish lady's name here. And she goes, she's the reason why when I burned myself, I didn't say ouch, I say, ay. Right? So that's a joke. Pretty solid joke. And then another girl comes out and she's like, yo, you stole this whole joke from me. Like, you're not even Mexican. Like, this is a joke about my grandmother that I tell about my grandmother that I know you watch me do, and you go on national TV and do it. And the thing is, once you get on national TV and do it, that's your joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no one's going to be like, oh, yeah, no, you did that over here at the Silver Lake Lounge on a Sunday. Like, it's like, nah, that's that girl who's on TV's joke. So I think that happens more really big comics.
So she went on television and not only did she steal a joke, but she turned her mother into a nanny.
Basically.
This is terrible.
But listen. I don't know if she did that. Maybe that's something that her nanny really did, and she just came up with that joke on her own and is parallel thinking, let me excuse my white friend. Because I know that's the one I know. I don't know the other girl. I ain't going to trash my homegirl. She's really funny, so.
That was not working with me. All right. But anyway, so tell us about you interviewed me once, and there was a Kanye theme to it. Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah. I got a podcast called Fuck Politics, Religion, and Kanye, which people usually like hella cheer for. Like I say it all the time at shows. People are like, yeah, fuck Kanye, and I'm like, well, Kanye's the GOAT. Like I'm a super big Kanye fan. I'm also a fan of discussing politics and religion, and the things you're not supposed to talk about are like politics and religion. Like, don't discuss politics and religion. And when I started the podcast, it was when Kanye went hard MAGA, and it was like such a polarizing thing. Like people were like super upset about it, and you like bring it up at a party, and people would be like fighting. And so that's how the podcast came about. It was like these are the things that you can't talk about because they're too polarizing. And the things that I love to talk about the most. Like I love to talk politics with people. I love to talk religion with people, and I love to talk about Kanye like a lot. So that's that's it. I still love to talk about Kanye. I need more Kanye right now. I'm upset that he's like quiet because I'd really like just Kanye rants on the daily.
Yeah, you like the yay and the nay, the pro and the Kanyes. I think I weighed again. I think I was pretty heavily on the nay side, but I was cool with Dennis Rodman for trying to bring about world peace in North Korea, even if it was through Trump. I remember that.
One, what I like about Kanye isn't the Trump thing, and like people always try to put Trump on me because of Kanye, right? They're like, "Oh no, you fuck with Trump because your boy fucks with Trump." And like my stance is that I like his idea about free thought. Like just because you are this doesn't mean you have to support this. Like just because you're black don't mean you need to be a Democrat, which I believe. But if you fall like to the idea that there's only a two-party system, you have to support this and the default to that argument is then I'm a Republican. And that's like the problem with Kanye's logic, which I don't consider him a political genius, but like with him saying like you don't have to vote Democrat if you're black, true. But if you're crazy, then you go, if you're like part of that two-party idea, you have to vote Republican, right? But I like his idea that like, yeah, no, be a free thinker, think for yourself, et cetera, da, da, da. And I'm good with that. And also my other thing is I don't like most Democrats, right? Which a lot of Democrats don't quite understand is that if I'm saying I don't like most Democrats, that means I'm somewhere to the left of y'all. Like, you know what I mean? I'm over here. So while you guys are screaming and yelling about Donald Trump, believe me, I hate him more. Like the little bullshit that you think you hate him for, I hate him for that and a million other things that y'all find acceptable because y'all let these Democrats do it. Yep. So if I'm going to hate Kanye West for fucking with Donald Trump because he, has, babies in cages and all this other shit, but I'm not going to hate like Jay-Z and Beyonce for jumping on stage with Obama when he deported more people than any president before him and dropped more drones than anybody before him and invaded more countries than anybody before him. Like, to me, it's like the same shit. It's like, I'm not looking at these people for their political ideas, really. So, like, I'm not going to hate them because they feel this way or that way about their political person. And for me, that extends to Donald Trump as it does to Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or so-and-so. Like, I think they're all despicable people. And levels, obviously, levels. I think Trump, like, huge piece of shit. But I also don't agree with, like, bombing the shit out of a bunch of countries and, like, like all this other shit. So Kanye West makes better music than most people, to me. He can make trash political decisions because I think they all are.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, all right. Consensus achieved. All right. So what's coming up next? Whoa. What do you got in the pipeline?
Nothing, man. I like honestly, like with this quarantine, I thought like I was gonna hit this like super creative but really, I'm working a lot. So I'm like still working this whole time. At the end of the day, it's just like a regular work day for me, except for like I work longer in the day. Like I literally am still working. Like I have another laptop to the left of me that I'm still working on. So like when it gets to the end of the day, I'm like tired like anybody else at the end of the day, and I just want to chill. So I don't have like all this like personal exploration time. I've actually even like I'm dumb for this because I guess now's the time for podcasts, but I haven't been podcasting at all. I haven't I haven't really been going live like that. Initially I was like, I just really want to take time to kind of digest the situation. Because I have a shit ton of opinions, but initially when this all first started, and still now, there is no shortage of dumbass opinions flying all over the place. So like I kind of is in a place of like wanting that to settle down. But like now I am thinking of one or two things. I think I either might start my podcast up and just kind of have it be like a solo thing and just, set up in my apartment and just kind of like talk to people about the pressing issues of the week concerning politics, religion, and, pop culture, and kind of address a lot of those things. Maybe do my podcast again, maybe make short movies. Like, I don't know. Like, we got another 3 months now, so we'll see. But like, I guess to get to it, I have to like bring myself to another place of like extreme focus where I'm not like just working and then tired. Like, I want to be like, I don't want to be this. I'm not putting this out in the world. I'm not putting this out into the world. I like my job and I like my paycheck. But in some ways, like, I get a little envious of the people that are going through this right now that are like, oh man, I'm finding myself and exploring myself and I'm finding these new avenues. And like, because I have nothing to do, I wrote a novel and I finished 3 scripts and all this other shit. And because like all of my most productive times in life have literally been when I'm out of work. Like every script that I've ever written, like I could be working on a script for like 2 years while I have a job, and then I'll be unemployed for 3 weeks and like knock out the script in a week. You know what I mean? So like I get that like level of motivation, but I'm not there right now. Like I'm like busy and stressed. Like I got like work stress. I got like bosses trying to make us work extra, even though the world's falling apart and there's no work to do. But they're like, we have to be viable. And so, I'm dealing with capitalism still.
Yeah. No, man, that's rough. That's rough. Enjoy the wine. Well, tell us about these scripts you wrote.
I've written a few. One, I got like a TV pilot that never went anywhere because I got the assignment wrong, but it's still fucking good, and I got to sell it to someone else. So I write mostly comedy. 2 features with a writing partner, 2 pilots on my own, and a few treatments on some stuff. I got some like horror movie stuff that I want to write. Like some gnarly kind of fuck the police vengeance type of thing. Like it's kind of all over the place. Like the horror movie I didn't write because they were like, yo, we need to stick with comedy because you've written comedy and submitted comedy, so do that. But I'm pissed that I didn't write it because it was like before Get Out got greenlit, and it's kind of like a race-based horror movie, and I ain't do it. And because the discussion was like, let's do this other comedy movie, which I ended up scrapping because it was a slavery buddy comedy. Yeah.
I'm trying. I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh or not. Like, is this like offensive or I laugh? All right, slavery buddy.
It is a slavery buddy comedy, and like, listen, I think it was solid. It was like the jokes in it are solid, and the story is solid, but it's like, do I want this, and do I want to be responsible for putting this out, and do I want to deal with like the backlash? Like the black community is like the harshest critic there is, and I gave it to a few people to read initially, and they were like I just said, they were like, listen, the writing's good, the jokes are good, the story's good. How does it make me feel? I don't know, And I felt that, and we wrote this in 2016, and after Trump got elected, I was like really feeling a type of way for a minute, and my writing partner was like, "Yo, let's revisit this, like we just did our first edit. So we did the first draft, we revised it once, and we were supposed to go back in for the last pass. And I was like, I need time. Like I can't. It was I had a white writing partner, and I was like, I don't even like. And I know he didn't like vote for Trump or anything, like hard Democrat or whatever. And I was still like, I feel a type of way, and it's going to take me a minute to kind of come back into feeling this, and I just kind of never came back.
Yeah.
And then the other script we wrote together, which we actually are going to redo now. It was called Wrecked, which is basically like there's a show on USA that no one's ever fucking watched, but it's called Wrecked, and we're almost positive they stole it from us. Kind of similar premise. They got greenlit like really like too close to us putting out the script to people. But again, like I said, it's a good script, it's a good idea, and if we put it out and people snatched it, for me, it's like, well, I got more ideas, so I'm gonna have those all day. So me and that guy we're gonna revisit that one because the show, no one ever even watched the fucking show, so we're like, all right, just change the name, put this shit out, and get back out there. And then I have another one that I'm working on about my neighborhood, and another one that I'm working on. I got a bunch. I like want the time to do it right now. But the fuck, I gotta work. I gotta be happy for a job and a paycheck, and I am, and I really am.
Yeah. No critique, no criticism, by the way. Just listening. So other than being open to making friends in the bathroom, what advice do you have to young comics?
First advice is don't take a comedy class. My absolute first advice. It fucks your whole voice up. Just get on stage and get on stage and get on stage and get on stage, and just that's it. Like just get on stage as much as you can. Listen to yourself. Like go back and listen to yourself. Write down everything as soon as it pops into your head. Like don't have this, oh no, I'm gonna remember that later type of mentality. Like keep a book on you all the time. And literally as soon as something pops in your head, like stop talking to whoever you're talking to. Unless it's like real funny and you're developing something in the conversation and you can push it a little further, then wait to write it. But if it's like, oh, this thought occurs and you got the joke, go write that joke because you're absolutely going to forget it later. There is no remember it later. The amount of gold that I've just like let fall out of my head because you're like, oh, I got to finish this conversation. I don't remember that. And you're like, what the fuck was I just talking about 5 minutes ago? So that, go up all the time. And like the comedy class, like I remember I was thinking about taking a comedy class when I first got started. And I was at the Comedy Store and I was talking to some dude I didn't even know, some like random comic, and we just started talking outside. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about taking the comedy class. And like he was like an older comic, like he'd been doing it. I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about taking a comedy class, I'm like trying to figure out how to like kind of push my way through this. And he was like, nah, like just don't take a class. Like just keep going up. And we like talked for like 10 minutes. And then this is now not a big deal, but back then it was. He's like still talking to me, and I was like, all right, cool, I think I'm gonna go get in here. And he like held me up for like 15 minutes. So I was like thankful for the conversation, 10, 15 minutes. He's like, oh yeah, get in there. Louis on stage, he's crushing. And I was like, what? He's like, oh yeah, Louis C.K. popped in. He's on stage in the original room. And I was like, motherfucker, I'm like, did you just keep me here talking for 15 minutes while like Louis on stage doing like 30 to 45 minutes? Like, why wouldn't you open with that? Give me whatever advice later. Let me go watch this motherfucker do comedy and then fucking come back out here. But like he was absolutely right. Like now that I've been doing comedy for not terribly long, but like longer, you can see like now when like a kid just got finished doing his comedy class and you're like, oh, you have the same voice as him, like because you have like one person telling you that this is how a joke is, and you're like, that's not quite it.
Yeah. We got a question from the audience.
Yeah.
Let me read it. Youth of the true humor. Sometimes they think insult and cuss words are mature when they are reminded of their original. How do you support the youth? What example sample on visiting high school art class? What's your message?
All right. Well, one, I like that like they think that like insult and cuss words are mature and or funny, which is like it can be true. Like it like I remember the first time though, the first time I got asked to do a clean set, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do a clean set. And someone was like, if you can't take all of the bad words out of your joke, then your joke's not funny. You know what I mean? Like you're relying on this. And I rethought my jokes, and like one, I went through most of it. I'm like, it's not as dirty as I think. But also, it's true. Like your joke should be in the wittiness of the joke, not because you're just like kind of being filthy. And then also like kind of like that super. I don't mind insult humor. Like I go to roasts and stuff, and like I like those, and that definitely can be funny if the joke is. But like the key is like that the joke is good. But then you also have like a lot of the comics that think that being offensive is comedy, and it's the thing that you see a lot with like real new comics, and because they'll see like a Anthony Jeselnik or something who says terrible things, but Anthony Jeselnik is one of the best joke writers in the game. Like he could, I promise you, he could write you like the simplest knock joke for his 3-year-old that is funny as hell. But he's also good at writing these other jokes, and people will see them do those jokes and be like, oh, that's the key is to be offensive. And you're like, no, it's not. Like the key is to be funny, not to be offensive. And if you're just offensive and not funny, you might get your ass kicked because nobody's playing that. It's like the same way we always kind of, there's always new comics who really want to say nigger on stage. And it's always like some like just like super white, like I do offensive stuff comic, and they try it, and we're like, you might get beat up tonight. And then like they always go, well, like George Carlin did it, Louis C.K. did it, and like yeah, they did it like 15 years into their career, of 15, 20 years into their career, being like great comics that know how to write a joke, that know how to set a premise, that know how to go there, and they still might get their ass beat. So like, if you don't have like that first level of it, then you don't have the second level. How do I support the youth? I don't. Not for them kids.
No.
What am I gonna do for the youth? I used to. I'm a teacher. I have a degree in education. I when I'm with kids, I talk with them a lot, but it's like usually like me asking them about like school and like testing them on their math and like giving them lessons about not letting other boys pressure them about having sex too soon. I try to make it funny though. Like I try to talk to like I be talking to kids.
Okay. I'm not sure of how if you're aware of how funny it is to watch you talk about not caring about children while like churning your wine.
Fucking kids. I'm trying. I care about the kids, but what am I going to do? I'm going to perform at elementary school. I don't got jokes for them.
Yeah.
To you, thank you. My brother's a teacher. I'm a teacher. My sister-in-law's a teacher. We be teaching.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been joined for the last 45 minutes by Aston Wallace. I really appreciate your time. I, Matt Cedillo, believe the children are the future. But those are my opinions. Thank you, Aston. Any last minute plugs you want to make?
What's that?
Any plugs? Anything you want people to know about?
Yeah. I'm gonna put my movie on YouTube. I'm gonna put my movie on YouTube tonight. You can find it on my YouTube channel. It's not a movie. It's 5 Minute John. It's called my, what do I call it? My Imaginary Me. It's a little short movie about the quarantine that I made in my house by myself. Go check out my Instagram at Fast Ramon. It's at Fast Ramon on everything, which doesn't make sense. My name's not Ramon. I'm pretty fast, but that's my name on everything. It's Fast Ramon. So check that out. Check out, and we haven't done the podcast because there's 5 of us and we're all quarantined. But check out the Tuskegee Jokeman podcast. It's a real funny show with me and 4 or 5 dudes. And if you as the test goes, whenever someone non-black asks to be on the podcast, we go, well, do you get the reference? And then they're like, what do you mean? Like, you can't be on the podcast. You gotta, if you don't know who the Tuskegee Airmen are or about the Tuskegee experiment, you cannot come on the podcast because you don't know where we're at. So check that out. And yeah, fuck Kanye religion, fuck politics, religion, and Kanye. Check that out. The old episodes are up. New episodes should be coming soon. So give that a listen. And Matt, check out the Matt Cedillo episode. It's just great.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you.